Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by oldschoollane.blogspot.com and is associated with Manic Expression, the Comic Book Cast, the Reopen Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida Facebook page, and for entertainment's sake. Everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Casual Chats. I am Patricia and I'm here with a few special guests. For our returning guests, you may know him as the guy behind Toon Grin, and he was in our Tome Terrain of Magical Expertise podcast last year. We have Taylor. Welcome back, Taylor.
Hey, glad to be back on the show.
And we have ourselves another guest. He does various videos and songs, and he's known for posting his work called From Pages to Pictures. He was in our Pee Wee's Big Holiday podcast. So we have James. Welcome back, James.
Today's broadcast is brought to you by Frankenberry. It tastes better, 50% off after Halloween.
Yes, and by the time that we post this podcast, it's going to be Thanksgiving. So there you go. That's how old this podcast is going to be, people.
My philosophy is Halloween only ends when I say it does.
Okay, well, thank you. So today's podcast is going to be about the Amblimation movie trilogy. Now, for those who don't know, around the 80s, Steven Spielberg was helping Don Bluth out with producing a few of his his movies, such as like An American Tail and The Land Before Time. So he thought to himself, I want to do my own movies. So he started off Amblimation, and then afterwards he helped direct and produce 3 movies that came out of it, and we're going to be talking about those 3 movies. So the first one we're going to be talking about is American Tail, Fievel Goes West, which is the sequel to An American Tail. So why don't you guys talk about your earliest history with both of those movies? So Taylor, why don't we start with you?
Well, with most of the Don Bluth movies, I haven't really seen most of them. Like, the ones that I have seen were The Land Before Times and then All Dogs Go to Heaven. All the other movies, I skipped over them until, like, maybe the last 2 years. Like, last year I watched Secret of Nim and then An American Tail. But I don't really remember much about American Tail because I probably only watched it, like, it was on TV. I was just skipping through the channels. I was just sort of like, nah, not now. Then I switched it to some other, like, news channel, something like that. So really, I watched the sequel first before I watched the full first movie.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that was fun.
Is very interesting. This will be really helpful for the podcast. Anyway, James, how about you? What are your histories with both movies?
They're interestingly similar to Taylor's, because I had never heard of the first American Tail when Fievel Goes West was coming out, and I was actually kind of psyched to see Fievel Goes West. Saw that one first, and then after that, American Tail was actually a rare case of a movie I just could not get my hands on for a long time. I got a full copy of it until I grew up. I would just be able to watch chunks of it at a time, and then have to go somewhere else. It was never something that I could finish. So yeah, I saw them in reverse, and the first film was kind of like this golden stone that should not be turned, for lack of better imagery.
Interesting. I saw both of these movies at the same time because when my parents were separated, my dad knew a guy who worked in a video store, and he did a lot of bootleg tapes. And so I got a copy of both American Tail and American Tail Fievel Goes West in the same tape. And you probably already know about this if you guys listened to the Tiny Toon Adventures podcast last year, in which that's how I spent my summer vacation. All right, so I saw both of these movies at the same time. I saw The American Tail, and then I saw American Tail Fievel Goes West, and I don't know, for the longest time, I liked both of those movies. I would watch them back to back, and then for a while, I saw the first one a lot. I didn't even watch the second one until just recently, like when we were starting off this podcast. But I saw Mars Girl's discussion about American Tail Fievel Goes West, and I thought, I remember seeing that movie. I just haven't in so long because I was focusing on, all the other stuff that she was talking about with Don Bluth month. The Don Bluth tribute, when she was discussing about every single project that Don Bluth was involved in. And then I wanted to rewatch this movie because it built up a curiosity when, she was discussing about all the projects that Don Bluth did, and then all the sequels that came out that didn't have Don Bluth involved. And so I thought, okay, I want to see if I want to rewatch this for myself. And so I did, and I guess now we'll be able to talk about it.
It's the only one that's actually good.
Yeah, I know. It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's the only one that's actually half decent. Because I would highly recommend that you do watch Mars Girl's discussion about it, but let's just say that all the other sequels of Don Bluth movies that are not involved with Don Bluth, they're not that good.
No. Not at all.
The Land Before Time speaks for itself.
Okay. You had 7 years to make another sequel and make a decent one.
Yeah.
With a decent story.
I know, exactly.
You still failed.
Yes. But to be fair, Don Bluth isn't perfect either. Even Mars Girl stated in her discussion about Bartok the Magnificent that even him doing follow-ups to his movies, they don't exactly turn out very, expected of quality that the original was. But anyway, I'm getting off topic, so let's dive into Fievel Goes West. So I'll just bring you a brief synopsis to those who have never seen the movie. It takes place right after the first movie, where they're living in New York, and Fievel and his family are struggling with living in the, dark and desolate slums. Basically how a typical immigrant family would live in New York during, the late 1800s, early 1900s. There's a huge cat attack led by Kadar Wall, voiced by John Cleese. And then he has a whole bunch of minions, including a spider named Chula, who's voiced by John Lovitz. And they're being chased, they end up in a sewer, and they hear a discussion about going out west to Green River. And so they decided, let's go out west. And, it turns out that the mouse who convinces them to go out west is actually Kadar Wall when he uses a puppet, and he's planning on taking all the mice and making them into mouse burgers. And Fievel finds out about this, and so he wants to find Sheriff Wiley Burr, but he's too old and he can't do it, so he needs assistance, so Tiger comes along, and Tiger was from the first movie. He's the cat that befriends Fievel, and so he's trying to teach him how to become a dog, as they say. And so they need to save the family right before they're turned into mouse burgers. So, Taylor, why don't you give your opinion about this movie? Knowing that you saw this movie before watching the original.
Okay, basically my thoughts on it sort of boils down to, I was watching it, I was enjoying the goofiness of everything, but there was something about it that sort of felt contrived in a sort of way. As it was trying to push it as Fievel's story, but it didn't feel like Fievel's story. Because as long as we follow Fievel as he goes from New York to the West, we were following Tiger's story as he was dumped by his cat girlfriend, and then she ends up in the western town, and then Tiger does everything he can to make it there, becomes a god at one point, and then becomes the dog with the shooting slingshot and all that. So it became sort of like Tiger's story, and in a way, I sort of liked it for that. But I didn't like how it was sort of contriving ways to make Fievel an actual key figure of that movie when it really wasn't his movie. He just happened to go oh well, I see the cats. Oh, I'm off the train now. I'm in the middle of the desert. In the desert, just basically losing all my water, just all that sort of stuff. And it just sort of became a movie where I felt like it was fun, but it felt like there could have been a little bit more to it in a way.
Remember though, Taylor, it was all just a dream according to the third film.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Oh, God. I remember that. Even Mars Girl complained about that stupid stupid line about that it was all a dream. You can, seriously, if you're a direct-to-video movie that has no association with any of the people involved with the creation of the first movie, and there's a second movie that came out that is canon to the first, that came out in theaters, and you're gonna retcon it saying, like, it was all a dream, then no. Absolutely not. You cannot retcon that. That's stupid. Anyway. Go ahead.
But yeah, going on about Fievel Goes West, what I liked about this movie, I would actually go to say that some of the work in the animation department might even be better than the animation in the first film. That was one thing that really amazed me, was just how fluid everything moved. And, looking at the works, we got names like Phil Nibelink and Simon Wells directing. Around this time, they were sort of known for that type of touch. But getting back to the plot, I noticed one weakness, per se, that you could, about the plot that you sort of neglected to mention. At one point, Fievel gets separated from his family. Again,
yes, I know.
Mm-hmm.
Basically a rehash of the first movie.
Yeah, but part of the film really does feel like a rehash of the first film. Even though he does get back together with his family much sooner, it still feels like they're very distant because they're kind of idiots.
Yeah.
They firmly don't want to believe that this town owned by a cat is going to be bad for them. There's like, oh, you're crazy. Even though you were an eyewitness to this scheme, I must treat you like my idiot son and not believe you.
Which is kind of funny because earlier in the scene, like just when they're about to go into the train and Fievel is concerned about where Tiger is, Papa Mousekewitz even says, yes, Tiger was a wonderful cat, but he is still a cat. So you know Tiger already from the previous movie. And so then when you have this brand new cat, Catarwal, that you don't really know too much about, you're immediately going to trust him even though that he's still a cat.
Are we consistently racist or
I don't even... kind of sounds like today, isn't it?
I should say speciesist.
Yeah, it's still the same thing.
Yeah, it sort of connects back to my point of, like, all the contrivance of it, like, where the mice, like, trust this cat when they're all sort of like, oh, God, cats just attacked us and kicked us out of our homes. But these cats are nice. Oh, Fievel got lost in the desert, but now we won't trust him at all. Like, even though he's our son and all that, we weren't even all that worried about him when he comes back.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean,
they're kind of numb at it by that point, you know. They're just like, okay, our kids disappear. We'll have about 50 more.
Yeah.
Even though in the first movie they were devastated the fact that he was gone. I mean, they were saddened. I mean, Papa Mousekewitz even denies the fact that maybe Fievel's alive because there could be thousands of them. And, then when they find out that he is alive, they get excited. But here in the second movie, it's like, oh, he just stepped out for a minute. And yes, we're feeling a little sad about it, but we're not going to be as heartbroken as we were since the first movie. So, I mean, yeah, there is a lot of rehashes to what the first movie was, but it's nowhere near as poignant. When Fievel tries to find his parents in New York City, and, you get to see everything that he had to go through in order for him to find where his family is. I mean, he went over to the sewers where he met up with the whole alley of cats. He went over to the sweatshop. He went over to the orphanage. And you get to see the underbelly of the city, and you get to see how depressing it can be. But with the desert, I feel like it's pretty limited. I mean, the desert happens to be one of my least favorite settings in any movie because there's not really a lot you can work with. You can work with that, whole Western kind of thing, but other than that, it feels really flat compared to the grimy, gritty, and detailed depiction of how it was in the 1800s in New York City from the first movie.
I can sort of see your point there. I didn't mind Westerns myself. Despite all the contrivances and idiotic moments, I can't really write this off as a bad movie specifically because I still, like I was saying earlier, there was obviously a lot of effort put into it.
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of effort put into it.
I think Dom DeLuise really gets a lot more time to shine here. He gets a few more quotable moments in there, even though the story's not really supposed to be about him as Tiger, but it's overall still an enjoyable flick, even though I haven't seen it since I babysat, which would probably be, 10 years? I'd watch it again.
All right, sure. I think another thing about the movie that I also did like is that, some of the other side characters were pretty enjoyable. Like, it's very interesting seeing Wiley Burp train Tiger into being the next sheriff, which, interesting thing enough, is like, he was voiced by James Stewart, and that was his very last role as an actor right before he died a few years later.
Mm-hmm. This was you can't say no to a swan song performance from a veteran.
Yeah.
Well,
James, as a musician yourself, what do you think of the music here? I mean, all three of the Amblimation movies are done by James Horner, so how do you think his music does well in An American Tail, Fievel Goes West?
James Horner, I could never say no to. He was one of the greatest film composers. If I had to have a top 10, he'd definitely be in there. His work on this particular film, he managed to capture the mood of a Western with big horns, castanets to capture the sort of horse beat rhythm that they typically do in Western scores. It felt like this was, at least I'm assuming that's what they are, because that's what you hear in da-da-da-da-da-da-da, sort of this percussive instrument that goes off in the background. He manages to studiously take what makes the classic Western feel like a Western in terms of the score and use that to this film's advantage. That's one of the big things about this movie is just the scoring. I have to applaud them for that, definitely.
All right. How about you, Taylor?
Yeah, I think the scoring and definitely the animation really works to really boost up this movie. It's the aesthetic of the whole Western setting. It gives that sort of root to it and sort of a high stakes sort of adventure, which makes the movie a lot more fun. When I get, like James said, you can't really say this is a bad movie, even with all the contrivances and such. It's still a fun little adventure, and I sort of like it more if it was a Tiger sort of movie, as we see him from beginning to end sort of grow as a character. The sheriff's star and all that. I was sort of questioning, were we building up to this? Was this the whole point of the movie? Him getting a little star? And I thought that was sort of funny that way. But I sort of like the Western feel of it. Well,
yeah, getting a little star, it is kind of the point of the film because it's a symbol of admiration from your hero. That's what Fievel's mission all throughout this is from the get-go.
I guess I can see your point there. I don't know. It's just glossed over in a way.
Yeah, he dreams about it in the beginning of the movie. He's living it in the end of the movie.
Yeah, I'm sorry, James, but I'm gonna have to agree with Taylor on this. I felt like the whole ending in which he does get the sheriff's badge, it does feel a little bit contrived. I mean, to be quite honest, Tiger was the one who pretty much, helped save the town, and, sure, Fievel helped a little bit, but, if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for the fact that, he brought Tiger back from being praised as a god over to Wiley, and then afterwards he got trained, a little bit to help out with the fight, then, yeah, I would think that maybe he would have, I don't know, maybe I wish that maybe Fievel could have helped out a little bit more throughout the movie, but yeah, for the most part, this is Tiger's story. This is him trying to better himself as a character. He's the one that grew the most in the entire movie. Starting off as a coward, and Miss Kitty left because he says, well, you're a fraidy cat, and I want to have a cat that's more like a dog. And so, we see Tiger going through all his crazy shenanigans. Then he's treated as a god, and he's content with where he is. And then when he's told by Fievel, hey, Miss Kitty is back at Green River, try to see if maybe you can try to win her back. And so he says, okay, you convinced me. And he basically just turns into a creature that he's not normally. He's a dog. And he's a cat. So it's basically like a symbol of being something that you're not, being brave, being determined, and all that. And I felt like this should have been Tiger's movie and not Fievel. I mean,
Cat dog. Alone in the world with a little cat dog.
Little cat dog.
Yes, exactly. Maybe that's where they got the idea. No, they didn't. We also focus on some of the other characters. We get to see Kat Wall. We get to see Tanya, who wants to be a singer, and she gets that in the end. And we get to see a little bit of Miss Kitty, and we just get to see the world building of Green River. But we don't really get to see Fievel as much. And the only time in which we do, we see rehashes of the first movie and him trying to convince everybody that cats are trying to eat the mice instead of befriend them, but nobody believes him. Then he convinces Tiger to go back, and yeah, I just wish that it would have been focusing more on Fievel, but it doesn't. But it's not a bad movie. The things that I really like are really good, like the song that is supposed to be like the main song in the movie, similar to the first movie. In the second movie, it's Dreams to Dream. In the first one, it was Somewhere Out There. And I like Dreams to Dream just as much as Somewhere Out There. It's a really nice song. And I like Kat Wall. He's a really good villain. Comparing to Warren T. Cat is a bit different, but yeah, he's a very fun villain. And it's funny looking back that John Cleese actually turned down the role of Cogsworth from Beauty and the Beast to do this movie. I know, it's hilarious looking back on it now.
Yeah, let's analyze that for a second and say which movie is right now playing constantly at my Target?
Yeah.
We're still doing Beauty and the Beast.
Well, to be fair, Beauty and the Beast is recently celebrating its 25th anniversary. American Tail, Fievel Goes West. Yeah, you got a point.
It's not celebrating anything.
He's not celebrating anything.
Yeah, we had a spin-off TV show, and that was it, man.
Oh, God, the TV show. I'm not even going to talk about it because I've never seen it.
I think I got it like 5 minutes into one episode. I was done. Yeah, back to the film. Okay, I can't deny that this is Tiger's story. Every once in a while, even though you have one character who's cited as the main, who's cited as the hero, you know it's not their story because they're not jumping through the hoops, per se. They're not doing anything new. It's kind of like with the Tintin movie that they did a couple of years ago. I felt like even though Tintin was the hero, the real story was Captain Haddock.
Yeah, that's true.
So sometimes a side character can take the center and steal the show, and that's what this movie is for Tiger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I just find it hilarious that in the beginning of the movie, that when Fievel takes off his signature hat and he pulls it inside out and it turns into a cowboy hat, how?
Because the animators said so.
I have the reversible hat.
Anyway.
And I want to get one more nitpick out there if I can.
Sure.
In the final act of the movie, the town citizens are, if I recall correctly, they're gathered up for the cutting of the red tape, and they're sitting in a giant mousetrap.
Yes.
And nobody notices.
No, because it looks like a podium, and so I guess they didn't see when sitting down that it looks like a giant mousetrap, unless you're really high up in the air, like how Miss Kitty was in the final act of the movie. And then, I mean, even she didn't see it. And then when she hears Kat Wall say, "Activate the mousetrap," and then she says, "Oh, it's a giant mousetrap." It's like, oh, now you see it. Brilliant.
Yeah, I don't even think from where the mice were sitting, they would have been able to clearly see it because it's just that's a spatula sort of look to it. It's like, oh, look at that thing that's completely flimsy and all that. It's going to smush us into mouse burgers.
Yeah.
No, that's not conspicuous at all.
Yeah, well, they had to walk up to it in order to sit on it, so I'm surprised nobody saw that when they were walking up to it.
They could have at least put a handkerchief over it or something.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so... yeah, I mean, this movie is very mixed to me. At some points, it does things pretty good. At other points, it doesn't. But, I mean, you can't fault it, I guess, because, since Don Bluth had nothing to do with it, but at least with Spielberg and a lot of the animators who did the first movie were a part of it, it does have better quality than all the other sequels that didn't involve a Don Bluth had. So, you know what? I mean, I would recommend that you can easily watch this movie on its own. I mean, even though that I would watch the first movie more, but I think other than that, it's a pretty decent watch, but it does have a few flaws that hold it back for me. Alright, I guess we can move on to the next one, which is We're Back, a Dinosaur Story. And, oh god, I have a lot to say about this movie. Okay, so...
Did you know it was based on a book?
Yes, and I read the book. It's terrible! The book sucks. For those, yeah, it's interesting that this was based off of a book. It's really short. It does follow it does follow the same plot as the movie, except they added in a lot of things to the movie, and the ending is so anticlimactic. But I'm getting ahead of myself. All right.
You really didn't like this one, huh?
Yeah.
Oh no, I have a lot to say. So please tell your history about this movie.
My history about this film is I first read about it in Disney Adventures back when I was a kid. Subscribed to that magazine when that was a thing. Remember that? And I remember looking at the designs and everything and saying, it looks like another Land Before Time in terms of how these characters were designed, but not in the obvious execution of the final product. I remember the push for this movie, too. Just like with Fievel Goes West, this one had a big advertising push to it. I remember going to school and finding books that were on sale because they made a tie-in with the movie. Isn't that strange? A movie based off of a book has books that are written based off of it.
Yeah, they used to be common back in the 90s. I remember, when the Disney movies were coming out, I remember seeing a lot of those. I think I even had one on Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is that's funny. Hunchback of Notre Dame is based off of a book, and I'm reading a book based off of the movie.
This is literary inbreeding.
Exactly.
But getting back to the point, we have a plot where Walter Cronkite travels back in time, gives cereal to these dinosaurs that makes them smarter. If you were to manage to make their brain size grow, it wouldn't fit in their brain case, but I digress. Skipping over that, they become intelligent creatures, travel in time millions of years into the future, back to modern time, and the whole deal is he sets them off in New York so they can go to a museum. And proper mayhem ensues, but we have sweet little children that they befriend along the way that sort of soften up the storyline a little bit. So... Isn't that charming?
Oh yeah, very charming. Okay. Go ahead, Taylor. How about what's your history?
I don't have a history with this movie. The first time I ever really knew about the movie was when the staff critics revealed it, where he parodied, what was it, Fever and Loathing Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And that sort of became one of my least favorite reviews of this because I didn't know what Fever and Loathing Las Vegas was. It's okay, I don't really get the jokes at all. And so this looks like a stupid movie. I'm not really going to watch it now. But then when it started doing this podcast, I just thought I gotta watch it now, so I know what it is. Then I watch it, and I'm just sort of wow, this is so hilariously dumb. Nothing in this makes any sense. They're just sort of throwing all this crazy stuff in, and no one's questioning it. I gotta review this.
Okay, my history with this movie is the same as Fievel Goes West. So this was another VHS tape that I got from my dad. I remember watching this a lot because he also paired this movie up with The Land Before Time. So watching this movie and then watching A Land Before Time. Oh, jeez. That was such irony back in the day. Oh, God. Okay.
It makes an already classic look even better.
Pretty much, yes. So, yeah, I remember watching this, and then I didn't watch it for such a very long time, almost 20 years. Then I listened to the Animated Anarchy podcast discuss about this movie, and then we're talking about all the awkward things that happened to it, and I was I gotta watch this again. And then I watched it, and I was oh wow, they were absolutely right. Then they were talking about all the fun facts about this movie, which I actually sent you a clip of the deleted scene, which we'll get to in a minute afterwards. Then I looked into the book. I saw one video of a guy who did a 1-minute discussion about the book, and then I found it online. I looked into it, and I'm like, wow. They worked this into a movie, and it's... How? Okay, so let me tell you what the book is about. Okay, so the book...
Please do. I haven't read it.
Okay, so it's a very, very short book. The book starts off with Rex, and he's about to eat the creature, just like he did in the movie. Then the small alien Vorb comes in, and he says, hey, I have brain grain for you. And brain grain is a vitamin, not a cereal. And he's just on his own. There's no Captain New Eyes. He says, I'm doing this for Megamind Inc. Yes, Megamind Inc. So then
you're a villain, all right. You're just not a super one.
Then after, and apparently this wasn't the only dinosaur that he did this for. He did this for not just the Apatosaurus, Triceratops, and Pterodactyl that we know from the other movies. There was a whole bunch of other dinosaurs that were in this movie. There was a Brontosaurus. There was at least 8 other dinosaurs. There was 8 dinosaurs in total. And so then they just got dropped off into New York City. Then afterwards, they start wandering around. They saw the Thanksgiving Day parade. They saw another dinosaur because they thought that it was the Apatosaurus who got the Brontosaurus who got lost. They popped it by accident, and so they're chased by the cops. Then Dr. Bleep sees them and says, "Come into the museum. You can stay for the night." Then she tells the story about Dr. Bleep. That's the woman who runs the Museum of Natural History, who's voiced by Julia Child.
I forgot her name was that. My gosh,
I know, it's so dumb. Dr. Bleep, Bleeb. But then
you named your character after the sound effect that TV censors make.
I know, bleep. Anyway, but yes, guess what? You're not even going to believe this. That's how the book ends. It ends with them at the museum, wondering about what their future was going to be. I'm not even joking. That's the end of the book.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Fascinating.
Oh, so you're going to take a book that was pretty much half finished, basically contrived as all hell, and just confusing because the alien just came by, gave the dinosaurs vitamins, dropped them off into New York City for absolutely no reason, and then the woman who runs the museum says, "Come on in," and that's the end of the book. So they had to add in a lot of things to it. So you have a story that's already half baked, and now you're going to turn it into a movie.
Well, aren't you glad that the film fleshed these things out?
Not really. Okay, so the movie actually begins with our main character, Rex, voiced by John Goodman, and he's out playing golf. And he meets up with a little bird, and this bird is going to be like our plot point because the bird acts exactly like the human character because he wants to run away and join the circus because his mother's smothering him, and he's being made fun of by his older brothers. So
that kid needs a sparrow punch.
Yeah, he does. Just right in the freaking face.
Yes, exactly. When you do a review on that, Taylor, please bring that joke up.
Of course I will.
Thank you. There's so many weird moments in this. I mean, it even begins just when the flashback starts, when Rex is his quote-unquote, "I was a real animal." I mean, when he was chasing around the little creature and, we get to see the prehistoric era, it looks like something straight out of Land Before Time.
I wonder.
I know.
What's in the rooms?
Oh, yes. The alien. Exactly.
The other little dinosaur. And then the little alien comes in.
I can't believe that was Jay Leno.
I know, considering that Jay Leno would do a much better performance as the Crimson Chin over a decade later, which is absolutely insane in my opinion. Yeah, seriously, he is like one of the worst characters in the entire movie. I can't even understand a single word he's saying, even though he's saying like, "Hey, you're gonna eat brain grain cereal so you can be super smart" and all that stuff. So it's like, okay.
He's a little too hyperactive.
I know. I mean, and it's funny because when he shoves the brain grain cereal into Rex's mouth, I mean, what is the first thing he does? Does he say, like, the meaning of life? Does he talk about quantum physics? No, he sings "Row, row, row your boat."
Your boat gently down the stream.
He's just sort of feeling mellow and smart. Hey, I just finished watching Star Trek V. Didn't they sing this?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, apparently "Row, row, row your boat" has and sci-fi pretty much go together according to these two movies. And there's another really awkward nitpick that I want to bring up, which the guys over at Animated Anarchy Podcast actually brought up. Mm-hmm. So we do get to meet up with the other dinosaurs. We get to meet up with Woog, Dweeb, and Elsa, and they're eating hot dogs.
Let it go. Okay.
I thought we were over those things at this point. It's been over a few years.
It will live again.
I know it will, because Christmas is coming and they'll be playing that movie to no end.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the one question I have to ask is that you have an Apatosaurus and you have a Triceratops who are herbivores. Why are they eating hot dogs?
But it's quirky.
That's cannibalism.
Because they're intelligent now.
Yes, and being intelligent means you get to basically reverse your diet.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Darn smart.
As human beings, we have a choice of our diet as well.
That is true.
We have flat teeth, and we eat meat. Well, some of them are flat.
Yeah, some of them are. Yeah, I mean, I can understand with Rex and possibly Elsa, but with Woog and Dweeb, no, not really. And there's just so many awkward jokes into this, like, when they meet up for the first time, in which, Elsa was talking about, like, I love the sauerkraut, and then Woog says, well, she laid an egg. It's like, oh yeah, I laid an egg. I'm so embarrassed. It's like, okay. And then the moment that Elsa meets up with Rex, she's immediately falling in love with him, which pretty much goes nowhere throughout this movie.
That's a running gag throughout the film. It's she's attracted to a creature that's that would probably destroy her insides.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, you're right. This is a major reoccurrence that happens throughout the movie, but we'll get into that later. Go ahead, Taylor. What were you going to say?
I didn't see anything. It was just sort of like, Elsa does that because she's the only girl one out of the group.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because she's the only girl out of the group, that means she has to fall in love with the main character. Anyway, but then we get to meet up with Captain New Eyes, as you were mentioning before, voiced by Walter Cronkite, and I really like his performance. I mean, but then again, it's Walter Cronkite. He's been a newscaster for a very long time, basically covering, the Saigon and the Vietnam War, and he was a news reporter from the 60s to the 80s, and just recently, it would have been his 100th birthday. Thanks, Google.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They put on a little show for him. Yeah,
they did. So yeah, I mean, I thought that Walter's performance as Captain New Eyes was really nice. I thought it was, I thought it was warm, and I thought it was you generally feel like he knows what he's talking about when he's talking about, like, I made this cereal to help everybody out, and I want to give something back. I want to help grant these kids wishes. And, he says, I have a wish radio, and I get to hear what kids are wishing for. And so he turns it into the middle future, where everybody's wishing to see dinosaurs, which is kind of funny, because I think around that time in the 90s, in which we had, we already saw Land Before Time, and then Jurassic Park came out. I guess kids were obsessed with dinosaurs around that time. And even the ABC show Dinosaurs.
Let's not forget the tie-in to Jurassic Park that this movie has.
Oh yeah, that's right. When we're in the Thanksgiving Day parade, you get to see a movie, and they're playing, and the main attraction is Jurassic Park, which
theater.
Yeah, exactly.
With that on the marquee. Mm-hmm. Okay, that sequence I should still say kind of works as a show-stopping number. Can we at least agree on that?
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's a fun musical number.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only song in the entire movie. With Fievel Goes West, there are a handful of songs, but in this movie, there's only one, and it's pretty catchy.
Makes it all. It makes it all the more memorable that way.
I think that in all the scenes that are featured in this movie, that's the one scene that everybody seems to remember.
Remember that time John Goodman was a singing dinosaur in the Thanksgiving Day parade?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yes.
There's a funny story to go with that. Like I was mentioning before, the advertising push for this movie was huge. I'm not sure which one of you guys are familiar with this story, though. In the actual Thanksgiving Day parade that Macy's put on, they decided to have an advertising tie-in for this film with a giant Rex balloon.
I remember, yes.
And do you remember what happened?
It popped.
The head popped.
Yes, I remember.
It's quite a common accident when people don't know what they're doing, but if this is not a bad omen for the film's performance, I don't know what is.
I know. Similar to American Tail and another movie which we'll get to later on, this movie never had any sequels and it never had an animated series, and it could have easily done it.
If it was successful.
Well, sure, if it was successful, but yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Anyway,
they did have a video game spin-off.
I never played it.
It's great. You get to play as either one of the two kids from the movie, and you get to beat the crap out of a giant bellhop.
What? That never happened in the movie.
Remember that scene in the movie? Yeah,
it sounds more like something to be in a Home Alone game.
I was just about to say that. Yes,
they're borrowing from Home Alone apparently in terms of, hey, this is how this other movie adaptation did it. That was genius, right?
Yeah. Okay, I guess now we can get into the kid characters. So we have the first one, Louie, and he's running away to the circus, and they even brought this up on the Animated Anarchy podcast, but if he's running away to the circus and he knows it's in Central Park, why does he have a raft and it has a breakfast machine on it? I mean, couldn't he have just walked over to Central Park if he knew where it was?
Oh,
yeah, that's very true.
I mean, he could have taken the subway. He could have maybe snuck into the bus or something. Why a raft with a breakfast machine taken out of Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
Your
I
question.
think the bridge was in the background, actually, so he could have walked across that.
Yeah, he could have, exactly, the Brooklyn Bridge. He could have walked right across from the Brooklyn Bridge. When I lived in New York, I did that, and there's a lot of people who still ride their bikes there, and yeah, they do that.
You're questioning a plot that could have been completely avoided if the dinosaurs had just been dropped off at the museum in the first place.
Yeah, good point. Good point. And the freaky thing is that he's not even scared on it. It's like, hey, you big dinosaurs, you know? It's like, if I were to see real dinosaurs, I would have freaked out.
Yeah, the only thing he really says was, whoa, I think there's something wrong with my brain. Completely fine with this now.
Maybe there was... did I put something in this egg sandwich that maybe I'm seeing dinosaurs?
Yeah.
Anyway... So now the dinosaurs meet up with Louie, and they're trying to see if they can walk around New York City without freaking out the entire population. And
it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. And so they thought, let's see if we can disguise them as balloons for the Thanksgiving Day parade. And then he meets up with our titular girl character, Lisa Simpson. I'm sorry, I mean Cecilia Nuthash. But seriously, it's Lisa Simpson.
I like the name Cecilia, but Nuthash?
Yeah, but then again, as mentioned earlier in this podcast, they have weird names. I mean, Woob, Dweeb.
Next, we're going to make a movie with characters' names like Aunt Fig, Mr. Lickboot, and...
Exactly.
They all sound like insults in a way.
Yeah, like British insults, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, you nuthatch.
Don't torment me, you dweeb. But yeah, it's funny because, when I saw her introduction, I kind of wish the movie would have focused more on her, because she's the one who has a sad backstory about her parents not being around, and she's celebrating Thanksgiving by herself because her father's gone in business and her mother's very social. But we have Louie, who's the main character in this movie besides the dinosaurs, and the only reason why he ran away was because his mother slobbers and kisses all over him in public. It's like, wow, that is a prime example of first world problems right there.
Yeah. And he just wants a friend. Didn't you see his dream? That made him all sad.
Oh, yeah. Boo freaking you.
Yeah, look at the girl who has no family during Thanksgiving. Oh, the kid who hasn't any friends.
Where are the Care Bears when you need them?
We care.
Even the Care Bears wouldn't care.
Exactly, but still, I mean, similar to Elsa in this movie, she is so love crazy. Like, the moment that she meets up with Louis says, why don't you throw this Thanksgiving hat away and come with me? And then she's like, okay. And then she's smitten all over him throughout the entire film. It's like she has no other purpose other than just to follow Louis around because she loves him and she'll do anything for him.
These two children are just entering puberty. Take it easy on them.
I don't know. I mean,
are they entering puberty?
I mean,
I don't even know.
I don't even know either. It's very unsure about how old they are. But even then, I mean, it's. I wish. I know that these children were not even in the book, but it would have been nice to maybe build into the relationship between them. I mean, it just so happens that they're kids going through things, and dinosaurs show up. It's like it was like two different stories put together into one.
Sometimes I'm actually cool with that. That's the funny thing with all the weird, bizarre things that this movie throws at you. I'm gonna say right off the bat, I chalk this film off as sort of a guilty pleasure.
Sure.
It's not a masterpiece or anything. It's not offensive either.
I mean, yeah, similar to Fievel Goes West, there are some things to like about, which I'll get to later on, but after the whole Thanksgiving Day parade fiasco happens in which the balloon pops and they find out that they're real dinosaurs. I do like the chase scene. I thought it was a lot of fun. Even that Larry King cameo that was just snuck in there like in 2 seconds saying like, oh, we have this is the Larry King show, and we have a woman who saw a dinosaur, and then she's like, yeah, I was just getting out of my bathroom, and then I saw a dinosaur by my window. And then she's like, and then Larry King was like, okay, next caller. It's like, okay. I mean, they walk around throughout the city when they're being chased. They just kind of scuff at it, like, no big deal. When Dweeb's in the subway, the guy who's reading the paper, he just sees it and he's like, whatever. And then when Wu goes into the grocery store and, he rides through the grocery store and then, he basically just knocks over the robber into jail and then all the hot dogs fly in and then the hot dog guy was like, huh? Where did that come from? And throughout this entire...
Manna from heaven.
Yeah, manna and Dr. Bleeb, throughout this entire movie, doesn't even see or hear all the commotion of the dinosaurs walking about. She's just busy putting posters up. And there's a running joke about her being late for everything. And
it seems like a lame joke. It can only work once.
That's basically her main joke.
I thought those sequences were definitely... They were goofy and enjoyable, and that's another standout moment in there. But then we get to...
the circus moments, yes. And then the movie
circus is evil.
Yes, and it just... The tone of the movie just turns 180. It turns from goofy happiness to severe scariness. I mean, it is genuinely creepy. If you're a kid walking around Central Park, especially in the 90s, back in the time in which it was a bit scary to walk around at night. Nowadays, things are a little bit better. I mean, they're very, very protective of, of various places nowadays. But imagine that, just, you see this really scary circus and all these creeps that are walking out of it, and you get to meet our main bad guy, Professor Screw Eyes. He's genuinely creepy, and he says to the kids, you're joining the wrong circus. And then they persuade him for like 1 minute, and then he's like, oh, would you like to sign a contract? And they sign the contract in their blood, like one drop of their blood, and now they're in. It's like, wow.
Very Faustian.
Oh, jeez. Anyway, so going into Professor Screw Eyes for just a minute. So he's Captain New Eyes' brother, and they were warned about him throughout the beginning of the film. The dinosaurs find Professor Screw Eyes' circus because that was the circus that Louis wanted to go join. And so in order for the kids to be set free, Professor Screw-Eye says you're going to have to stay. You're going to have to join for my circus, and there's a really interesting scene in which he shows off two things that are opposite to Captain New Eyes. There's the brain drain, which is glowing aspirin, which, to be fair, I guess that's taken from the original book, because in the original book, brain drain is a vitamin, and then he shows. Oh, go ahead.
Kryptonite, basically.
Yeah, it's kryptonite. It's glowing. It's glowing kryptonite in aspirin form, and then you have the fright radio, which shows people on what he's scared to death of. And this is something that really caught off guard for me when I saw the movie again recently. So let me ask you a question. So who are the people portraying their fears to when he turns on the radio?
You see a bunch of kids.
Okay, who's watching the circus?
Bunch of adults.
Okay. The kids are afraid of monsters, saying, like, monsters are going to eat me, monsters in the closet and stuff like that. And he said, do you see what they're most afraid of? They're afraid of monsters. To be fair, if it was for kids stating that, sure, I can understand that. But if that's the case, why isn't he targeting the fear of adults? When was the last time an adult was afraid of monsters under the bed or monsters eating people?
He's trying to expand his audience.
Yeah, but but I mean, all that stuff that he showcases. Like you have these jump scares with all these creatures and whatnot, but it wouldn't be something that an adult would be afraid of. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that the adults would go to on purpose, like for those haunted house things, like for, nowadays that they have for like The Walking Dead and, these kind of things. But, I mean, if he's trying to broaden his audience, and he even tells the kids, you missed the show, kids, come back tomorrow, and he pretty much is dismissive of these kids. I mean, he seems to be more targeted for adults than children. Wouldn't he be kind of getting the fear of adults if he wanted to broaden out his circus?
That would be a better idea.
Yeah. I mean, think about it.
Unfortunately, his contract to do a cross promotion with AMC is being a bit delayed.
I guess so. But yeah,
the trouble is, even adults aren't afraid of Walking Dead.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but if I guess, even with monsters, I mean, most adults are not afraid of monsters anymore. I mean, they actually like monsters and vampires and zombies and werewolves and all that stuff. So they would, they would embrace them. I mean, if Hotel Transylvania showed us anything, it's like they celebrate monsters, not fear them. I think it would have been a lot more stronger if maybe kids would have been there for the circus. Like, maybe they would have snuck out at night, similar to how the kids in Are You Afraid of the Dark were, in which they would see something that frightened them, and then they would be frightened because maybe in a sick, twisted way, we want to confront our fears just as much as we want to avoid them.
Yeah, I think that would have worked out for the pillow between New Eyes and Screw Eyes. Seeing how they both have kids in their sights, so that New Eyes wants to give their dreams to come true, and Screw Eyes wants to basically make them all pee their pants.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been a nice contrast to one another, in which New Eyes wants to help kids, Screw Eyes wants to scare them, but he never scares kids, he scares adults, and it doesn't really match with what the message of the movie is. So,
yes, Hotel Transylvania, the film that Monster Mash should have been.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I mean, there are some things about that movie that I liked, but I'm not too crazy about it. I thought it was okay. And the sequel, I've never even seen, and I have no interest in seeing unless, I'm forced to watch it. But other than that, what I was trying to portray is that the message of We're Back is kind of muddled, which I felt that Screw Eyes should have been built as a better villain. He's portrayed as this scary man, the opposite of New Eyes, who's trying to help kids, and he's trying to scare people. He has that creepy eye that's a screw, and now I think it's better of time to discuss about this particular scene. So the dinosaurs agree to take the brain drain, and then he would rip off the contract. Early in the movie, Screw Eyes changes Louie and Cecilia into monkeys, and now they're being free from the contract, and now they're back into human form. And so there's a deleted scene that I actually sent you guys, right even before we recorded the podcast. But for those who don't know, there is a deleted scene of this movie that actually it describes about how Professor Screw Eyes got the screw eye. And it delves a little bit more into what happened right before he transforms the dinosaurs into their original forms, like their original savage beast forms. Go ahead.
Is this the scene where Kenneth Mars is not playing him?
Yes. So yeah, this is another interesting fact. Originally, John Malkovich was supposed to be Professor Screw Eyes, but due to conflicting things that happened, he was dropped out of the project and they brought in Kenneth Mars instead. And even when John Malkovich looked at the final product of this movie, he found it to be incredibly subpar. And even still to this day, he does not even want to talk about this movie.
Well, I'd just like to say, at least Kenneth Mars really put some spirit into his performance. John Malkovich, you might be an Oscar-winning actor, but your villain performance is pretty laid back.
Yeah.
I thought that was weird too when I saw the deleted scene. It was just sort of like, is that really a villain voice to me? Is that really like villain monologuing? It's more like I sort of just got up today. Now I'm going to tell you about my day today.
I'm going to be waxing villainously over a cup of coffee.
My answer, no big deal.
Anyway, so the scene of how
would you like to go to Starbucks?
Get a triple mochaccino.
Would you like to have a strawberry and blueberry scone with it?
Mr. Bond.
I'm going to go lay down and take a nap.
Okay, so the scene. So he talks about how he got the screw eye. He talks about how when he was a boy, he was sleeping near a berry bush, and one of the berries fell into his eye. A crow came along, pecked the berry, and took his eye as well. And he was like, ever since then, I was afraid of crows, but now I control them because I mastered my fear. And, you know, to be quite honest, I really wish this scene would have made it into the movie. The reason why it was cut was because it was deemed too scary for kids. Like, they would have been frightened by it. But, you know, Spielberg, you've done a lot of creepy things in your movies. I mean, E.T., Indiana Jones, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Jaws. And you're trying to tell me that this particular scene, which is supposed to build up our main villain as to why he got the screw eye in the first place, is going to be cut from the movie. And then when immediately after, you know, when the scene is cut in which Rex walks away towards Louis and Cecilia and heads over to Professor Screw Eyes, then we get the la 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 tweet tiddly tweet, the happy birds and them waking up. It's like, I mean, even as a kid, I thought there was something missing, and now I know why. There was supposed to be a scene there. Yeah. A very necessary scene, by the way.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But, hey, you know what? At least we get Martin Short trying to save the rest of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to how in, you know, I really like Martin Short. I mean, he does a lot of funny roles in a lot of the movies that he's in. I mean, with animated movies, with him being in Prince of Egypt, Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, and Madagascar 3, he does do a decent effort of trying to make a lot of laughs for the kids, and some of it's pretty good. It's just kind of shocking considering that, again, you know, similar to the juxtaposition between, like, the goofy chase scene and then the circus, now we come from the circus to a funny clown.
Yeah.
Because you gotta have those dips and hills, you know?
Yeah.
That's like dips and crashes and tone.
But yeah, I mean, the thing is I mean, I wish that this movie would have been a lot more balanced with its humor and its dramatic moments, but it's just too jumbled up that it's like a roller coaster. It goes up and down without any loop-de-loops or side turns.
So that's really your main issue with the film is not really the structure of the story, but the structure of the emotional side of the story.
The tone.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like I said about the story was based off of a half-baked, story based off of a children's book. So, but when reading into it, but yeah, the tone of this movie is really up and down at most, and some of the characters are not as interesting as others. But anyway, going back into the plot, I mean, you have the clown saying, you better stay away. The professor teared up the contract. You're free, but your friend, the dinosaur friends, have to stay. So they decided, we're gonna stick around and we're gonna try to help our friends out. And then we see the circus performance and the colors, the crazy whacked out music and everything. It is so entertaining to me, and I just love
it is such beautiful nightmare fuel, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's very All Dogs Go to Heaven-esque. If it was like more lively, it's probably my favorite scene in the movie. Just how colorful and creepy it is.
It's a circus,
Yes, yeah, it's a circus. If Tim Burton decided to take some happy pills.
Isn't that every Tim Burton movie that has a circus?
When was which Tim Burton movie had a circus?
Big Fish, Batman Returns.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Okay, so when he shows off the monsters, everybody's freaking out, and then Professor Screw Eyes decides to control Rex, bringing them closer to the audience, and then this one crow just flies and turns on the light flares. It's like, what does this one crow have against Professor Screw Eyes? I mean, it would have been nice, and like I said, the deleted scene in the movie in which he states that, I am the master of my fear. So maybe it would have been like one crow he would have been afraid of or something, and maybe this crow has a vendetta against Screw Eyes.
I'm the same crow from 50 years ago that picked out your eye, and now I'm back for the rest of you.
It's like the crocodile from Peter Pan.
Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock.
That would have been good.
Then we could have a sequel where he's replaced by an octopus.
Yeah, exactly. And instead of going tick-tock, tick-tock, it's like pop, pop, pop. Anyway, so, yeah, this one crow that has a vendetta of Screw Eyes for whatever reason, he turns on the flares, and then Rex snaps out of his hypnosis from Screw Eyes, and he starts attacking him. Then Louie approaches him and is like, don't let those yahoos tell you what to do, Rex. I know I act like a tough guy, but that's because I'm scared too. It's like, okay, can't you be a little bit more genuine, saying, dude, you're about to eat this guy, put him down. But I mean, even then with Rex, he kind of fools around with Screw Eyes. I mean, he just grabs him and he kind of smiles and gargles. It's like, if he's trying to turn him into an actual Tyrannosaurus Rex, if we learned from Jurassic Park, he would have killed Screw Eyes immediately and then went off to the rest of the audience. And the rest of the audience should have left by now. But no, they stay afterwards for a major applause when, Louie turns Rex back to normal with the power of love.
He would have snapped people right off of the toilet.
Yeah. So,
everything.
Everything. Anyway, so yeah, and even earlier in the scene in which Cecilia even says, "Please let no bad happen." It's like, who says that? Who says let no bad happen instead of don't let anything bad happen to him, or hopefully things turn well. I wish things would be back to normal, but no, it's let no bad happen.
Script writer must have just had a heart attack.
As long as we're playing,
no bad happen. Dead.
As long as we're pulling from Faust and other classic literature, why not have them talk like they're in Shakespeare?
Yeah, because apparently talking like Shakespeare was so consistent throughout the movie.
Please, let no bad happen.
Parting is such sweet sorrow.
Oh, God.
Okay. So things go back to normal, and the audience is there applauding, and then Captain New Eyes shows up, and Stubbs quits in probably one of the most funniest scenes in the movie, in which he gives him everything, saying, like, I quit, take everything, and one of my favorites is, take this mermaid in a shell alongside with my brother Richard. Okay? And then he says... And then he says, you know why I'm talking and they're laughing? That's called comedy. And then he just leaves. It's like, wow.
Yep, my last line in the movie. I'm quoting Slappy Squirrel.
And so then New Eyes even says to him, will you change your ways and come with me? And he's like, no, never. And so he leaves, and then immediately he regrets it because everything gets dark. And
where's the audience at this point?
I know, where is the audience at this point? Because we saw the audience laugh at Stubbs' jokes, and then they're gone. I mean, I could understand if they would have left when the dinosaurs showed up, but no, they just seem to disappear really quickly.
Yeah, the villain was just having an existential crisis, so we can all just leave now. This is the non-boring part. This is the boring part of the movie. See ya.
The time-traveling spaceship is gone. Let's go.
Yeah. And then we get to his demise, in which all the crows slowly come down to him, and he just disappears, and that is so genuinely creepy.
Yeah. Crows are very clean when they kill people.
Oh, yeah. Instead of, slowly pecking at them, they just fly into you and then you disappear. It's like a more evil version of how Pigeon Man left. Anyway, so the movie concludes with them going to the Museum of Natural History with Dr. Bleeb, and the kids meet up with the dinosaurs, and then the story pretty much ends. And yeah, I just have to say that, oh geez, I mean, this movie did not do well whatsoever in the box office. I mean, it only made about, what was it, it only made $9 million overall, and, just like you were saying before, there was that whole Thanksgiving Day parade incident, and there was even a few video games, but other than that, this movie just came and went so quickly, and this movie has so many problems.
I chalk it off as a guilty pleasure only because it's a mixed bag. I mean, especially from what you were describing of the book there, it really seems like the filmmakers didn't have much to work with. They just had a really, really thin plot. Maybe they went to their kids and asked them, hey, what would you like to see in a movie? I should say entertainingly off the wall. I mean, it's kind of a mess, but it's in my book, it's a really passable B-C grade mess.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Entertaining mess, if you can put it in just two words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
goofy. It's so over the top dark. It just sort of makes everything what's going on? And sort of that, even that roller coaster feel that's going up, down. It sort of makes it more interesting to watch, rather than just all other bad movies where it's just oh my god, it's all boring, all stupid, and all that. This is just basically all over the place in an interesting way that sort of keeps you, making you want to watch more of it. Mm-hmm. For me, at least.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really work with a story that's basically bare bones and then try to make a movie out of it, trying to add in a whole bunch of things that you think that kids would like. I think that maybe Spielberg just saw the book and he's like, because of me, Jurassic Park, dinosaurs are becoming more popular. Let's see if we can try to milk this for all it's worth for maybe the kiddies. And, Land Before Time was already doing that, so I guess, hey, I want to try to see if I can do a dinosaur movie of my own. So, there we go. Overall, yes, this movie is a colossal mess. There were so many things that they could have done right, but overall, it's pretty entertaining if you want to check it out for yourself. It's not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I can say that it's entertaining. It's a bit inconsistent with a lot of things, but, just give it a watch if you're interested in checking it out.
And why did this movie get a Blu-ray release before Land Before Time?
What? Are you serious?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I remember looking that up and be like, why? What? Well, it's even available on YouTube in HD.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, I do remember seeing it on YouTube like that.
Oh, boy. Okay.
I know the movie looks nice and everything, but...
I mean, I guess for the circus scenes, it would look nice in HD.
Yeah.
Alright, I'm done with this movie. Let's go to the final one. Now we're going to talk about the last movie in the Amblimation trilogy, which is Balto. And yeah, I mean, I have to say that out of the 3 movies that came out of it, Balto is definitely the best constructed. I mean, even though that is very, very loosely based on a true story about the incident that happened in 1925 in Nome, Alaska, I do like the presentation of it. So, it's about a half dog, half wolf named Balto who lives in Nome, Alaska, and there's this huge epidemic where a lot of kids are getting sick. What was it? Diphtheria or something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm guessing.
Okay, so there's a huge diphtheria epidemic that's going on, and they're all out of medicine. So they have to find a way so they can be able to get to medicine, but there's a severe storm that prevents it from being traveled to air and sea. And the only way they can be able to transport it is with a bunch of dogs meeting up in a location, and that's about 600 miles away. So Balto wants to be able to help out, but he's being ostracized by everybody because he's half dog, half wolf.
It's quite literally the underdog story.
Yes, it is. You cannot get any more literal than an underdog story with a dog being the main protagonist. Anyway, so along the way, the sled dog team gets lost, and so with time running out and the kids getting even more sick, especially our main leading girl, who's named Rosie, Balto decides that he's going to save, the sled dog team by traveling over, and he travels along with a goose named Boris and 2 polar bears named Muck and Luck. Yes,
because we have to have that Disney formula in there.
Yes, exactly. The Disney formula of having a whole bunch of side characters that do a lot of jokes. Boris is voiced by Bob Hoskins, and he does always a great job of, being the funny guy in these movies.
Oh, yeah, Bob Hoskins was the man.
And I don't know, I mean, you have, Muck and Luck, and I think Luck was voiced by, what was it, Phil Collins?
Phil Collins?
Yes.
That is so random, you're just like, okay, comedy sidekicks, who we got? Phil Collins. The rocker?
But to be fair, he voiced one of the vultures in Jungle Book 2.
Yeah, but he was a newcomer.
True. That's true. Even though it was... Anyway, but yeah. But yeah, it's very interesting. So yeah, Phil Collins polar bear and Bob Hoskins goose with Kevin Bacon dog. Anyway, so yeah.
I never about to cut foot loose. Hey, that rhymes.
Yes, it does. Very nice. Anyway, so I really like how this movie is presented. I mean, there are a lot of problems with the movie, similar to how I felt about, the previous Amblimation movies. There are some characters that don't get a lot of focus as others, and they're not as remotely interesting. Some of them are quite annoying. Like, you have these 3 dogs who are friends with Seal, who's like the main bad guy dog, voiced by Jim Cummings, and they're like saying a whole bunch of compliments to Seal, like, he's amazing, he's fantastic, he's incredible. And then you have this one dog who's saying, like, yeah, he's good, and then he gets smacked all the time. It's like, that gets annoying and old really fast, because it happens a lot in the movie.
No one shoots like Gaston, no one...
Oh, jeez, yes, exactly. It's pretty much Gaston, and every children's movie in the 90s try to be like the next Gaston, and Pebble and the Penguin, and God, I can name a whole bunch of others, but it's not in the top of my head. But yeah, Steel is basically Gaston. Yeah, all the girls are falling in love with him. The guys want to be like him, and they say a whole bunch of complimentary things to him. It's basically Gaston as a dog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, why don't you guys talk about what your feelings are of this movie? Go ahead, Taylor.
My feelings about the movie, I haven't seen it in a little bit, but I did like the movie for when I first saw it. Like, when I saw it was, like, based on a true story. I just thought, like, if Rosie's supposed to be the one that's telling the story, and she was sick the whole time, how would she know the story?
Yeah, I have a good point.
She's sick in bed dying, and then afterwards, I'm all bitter, so I definitely know about the story about the dogs out of freaking, like, they were on their own and all that. I know everything in detail.
Yeah, I mean, if it was like Anne-Marie from All Dogs Go to Heaven, in which she was able to talk to the animals on what happened, I can understand that, but no, it's not that case. Even though she does have a dog named Jenna, who's voiced by Bridget Fonda, who becomes, of course, the love interest to Balto.
Yes, because every animated movie needed a love interest. Because every child wants a love interest.
Yes, all 7-year-olds need to find someone that they love.
Like Lisa Simpson.
Yeah. Exactly.
Everybody wants Lisa Simpson.
Anyway.
I am the dream girl of every prepubescent boy.
Oh, no.
Okay. What are we talking about again? Oh, yeah, Balto. Go ahead. Go ahead, Taylor.
Yeah, but Balto's good. Definitely the best out of the 3 movies. Like, I was just sort of thinking about all 3 movies and how I would really describe them as, like, a whole company. And I sort of like the comparison I can really draw from. It's like, the whole company is really close to real effects is with movies. Like, they've done, like, the book, that time-traveling turkey movie and all that. And they have, like, really great animation, but they always fumble in a lot of areas in the story department.
Oh, you're talking about Freebirds?
Yeah,
Oh my god, you have got to listen to the Animated Anarchy episode about Freebirds, because I've never seen the movie, but from what I've heard about it, wow! It is one of the most crazy, mind-blowing, insane movies I have ever heard of.
I'm actually reviewing that.
Oh, I cannot wait!
For American Thanksgiving.
I cannot wait to see that.
That'll be up in a few weeks. But yeah, because of it's got beautiful animation. All the real effects movies have beautiful animation, but they always fumble in story. And I feel that's what Amblimation's sort of like their key at. Like, they have the greatest sort of animation I've ever seen. It's like, wow, this is all colorful and all that. But they always just add these little stupid things to the story to sort of make everyone go, no. It's like, yeah, it's based on a true story. It's like, stupid internet, whatever. What was I saying? Basically, I feel that Balto would have been much better if it didn't start with the grandmother and the little girl in the park. Should have started with the Balto story, just like as is, not just going like, I remember way back when I was sick and I knew about a dog.
Well, maybe she did research after the fact. But
yeah, maybe, I guess so. But then, how would she? I mean, I can understand her doing research on it because it was a pretty well-known thing that happened in Alaska, and they still do the Iditarod sled dog race every year, even still to this day. But how would you do research on how the other dogs' perspectiveness were, like the side dog characters and how Boris, Muck, and Luck were doing? So, how would she know about that?
Yeah. Maybe this is how the kids are perceiving the story because, hey, it's a story about animals, so let's look at it as being an animated movie.
I guess so. To be fair, sure, I can see that.
You guys have a good point, but maybe it's a nitpick I think I can gloss over.
Yeah, I just feel like the nitpick could have been like removed entirely if they just said like this is based on a true story, but it started with the actual story of it, not just saying like I remember way back when.
Well, to be fair, they did the same thing with Titanic, in which based off of true events, and the woman is recollecting her story. And, there was a whole bunch of moments in the movie that she couldn't have known about. Like, how was she supposed to know about all the other passengers who were going through their moments when she was not there? How did she know about all the people in the lifeboats in which, she wasn't there either? I guess the point of it is that it's trying to build up towards everything. It's trying to showcase to us there's just more to this one character. It's just building up to everything. That way we can feel even more sympathy towards everything around them. And I guess for Balto, I mean, like I said before, it works in a point because not all the characters are fantastic. Like, I could have lived without the sidekicks to Seal and the girl dogs who fall in love with him. I mean, they were written better, sure, but they're just written as the stereotypical, oh, Seal is such a fast dog. I love him so. And they're like, oh, he's incredible. He's fantastic. He's amazing. He's stupendous. And I mean, it's like, whatever, but, I mean, I can see your nitpick, Taylor, but I think if it would have worked on a better movie that built up more to this situation, then I wouldn't have seen it much, but, I mean, I don't really cite that much into it, but to be fair, I mean, this movie's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that the things that does work, I think it works pretty well. I mean, the characters are really well done. The animation, I think, is the best out of the three movies. Like, the scene in which they go inside into the ice cave, where they're walking around and they see the stalactites, and even that small, annoying dog, when he's looking through the ice, there's this ice form.
Little nod to E.T. right there.
Exactly, nod to E.T. when she goes, phone, phone.
In joke, Elliot, in joke.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that this movie does shine in, and also another thing is that, yes, it's the stereotypical, lame terms, like, quote unquote underdog story in which, Balto is shunned by everybody, which is, of course, nothing too new about it, but you do get to feel for the character at points, and he, doesn't give up with trying to do what he needs to do, and just showing a lot of optimism and never giving up, and I can respect that. I can definitely respect that.
Yeah, I feel that's the best part of the movie with Balto and his opposite personnel. So what really drew me through the movie, like that nitpick that I mentioned before, is definitely nothing important.
Yeah,
but a funny thing just to joke about when I watch Prince and all that.
You forgot, this movie was remade not as Free Birds, but as Alpha and Omega.
Oh, no!
All right.
But seriously,
movie.
Yeah, we have a new Wolf franchise. We tried it with Balto, but that didn't work after 3 movies. The reason why I think this movie works, this is one reason why I hate it when movies say based on a true story when they're obviously so very, very, very loosely based on it that it's kind of mind-boggling. I appreciate it as being a loosely based story, or I describe it more as being inspired by, because one, it's a cartoon. There's going to be liberties taken.
Sure.
That's you should know that going in. And two, it's kind of amazing that they focus so much on Balto as a character, because looking at the events of the actual race, Balto did not do most of the carrying of the medicine. According to what I'm reading here, that responsibility belonged to Togo.
Yeah, it did belong to Togo.
I almost said Torgo, but that was Manos. Togo, the dog who eventually went on to make a pizzeria. And looking at Balto's design too, it's they put things on him that it's hard to really describe, but they definitely put fur markings on him that distinguish him a little bit more, I think, as a typical husky. If you want to see the real Balto, he's on display at this museum right here in Cleveland. Shocking, he's been stuffed, but
taxidermy, but
Mm-hmm.
So it's similar to like the last dodo that ever survived, pretty much, in which they try to make like a taxidermy on that because there's no others that exist. But another thing that's notable about it is that there's also the statue in Central Park.
Mm-hmm.
And I it's funny because when I was visiting New York a couple of months ago, I wanted to go over to Central Park to see the statue, but I just never had the time, which was unfortunate because I really wanted to see the statue.
To be honest, a number of things could have happened to that statue. It could have been crashed into by a spaceship or a certain troll with a green thumb.
Oh, yeah, or a bunch of dinosaurs falling into it.
Exactly.
There's a lot of wonderful moments in the movie that I really did enjoy, like Balto taking Jenna under the hospital floor and showing her the light and the broken glass forming the northern lights, and I do enjoy that scene with the bear, and I do enjoy the scene again with the ice cave and the stalactites. And yeah, there's just a lot of moments in it that really do make it worthwhile watching, and even with the problems that it does have, like some of the characters not being as good as others, Other than that, I mean, there's not really too much I don't like about this movie. I think out of the 3 movies that I saw of the Amblimation trilogy, this is definitely the most solid out of all of them. And
yeah, can't argue there.
Yes.
It takes the formula, I'm just going to call it the Disney animated formula, and works best with it, even though it's not a musical.
No, it's not. This is the only movie out of the Amblimation trilogy that doesn't have any songs in it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Fievel Goes West had a handful of songs. We're Back had 1. Balto has none. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. And all 3 of them are done by James Horner. And of course, you know, he does a stellar job of it as usual. And yeah, I really like the main theme of Balto, and I really like all the other songs that are there. It does really, you know, just like with James Horner's other works, it does fit everything with what's going on in the movie. Especially that one music scene in which, you know, Balto is showing Jenna the quote-unquote Northern Lights for the first time. That was also a really nice one. Yeah, not really much in detail to say compared to We're Back, because that movie was just so insane. But yeah, other than that, I think that this movie is still worthwhile checking out. It's just too bad that it came out at the wrong time, because I think this movie came out shortly after Toy Story.
Oh yeah, so it's gonna get swamped.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was the last movie of the Amblimation trilogy, and I sent you guys a link right before we even started the podcast, but we knew what the 4th one was going to be about. They were going to do an animated adaptation on the Cats musical.
Oh yes, I would have loved to see that.
That would have been great. I saw the pictures.
That would have been interesting.
I saw the pictures, and they looked amazing. I would have loved to have seen it. I mean, if Hey Arnold
show me the link again.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if Hey Arnold was able to pull off a parody of it with rats, I would have loved to have seen an animated version of Cats. We're rats, we're furry and forlorn. We live in sewers, awful sewers, and our hearts are torn. Anyway, I'm done.
I'm sort of shocked that no one's ever really done a Cats musical before that's animated.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll work now as much anymore because, you know, back in the day, Cats was the longest running musical of all time, but now Cats hasn't ran on Broadway in years, so
yeah.
I guess it will never happen. I guess that was probably our first and last chance we will ever see a Cats musical, but, you know, who knows? I mean, it could possibly change, but then again, with Disney doing a whole bunch of movies with hiring Broadway actors, I don't think that it would be even necessary as much.
If we still have movies being made like Les Miserables and Disney doing Stephen Sondheim musicals, maybe.
It could be.
I have my fingers crossed. I'm just sort of being hopeful.
Yeah. All right. I'm about to. Okay. So I just sent James the link to the Cats musical and the art, the concept art behind it. So again, for all you listeners, I will leave all that stuff in the description box below for you guys to check out. And how it would have been a really interesting movie to check out because this stuff is really, really cool.
It looks just from the backgrounds right now, it kind of vaguely resembles something you might see in Oliver and Company.
Yeah, it looks... I mean, I've never seen the musical. I've just heard about it through word of mouth, but yeah, it would have been really interesting to see. You don't really get, to be quite honest, you really don't get a lot of animated movies based off of musicals. I think the only one that we ever got was The King and I.
That is about as based off of the musical as the musical is based off a true story.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, fingers crossed if maybe it'll ever happen, but I don't think it'll ever be done by Amblimation, so... Yeah, okay, so after that, the movie of Balto basically flopped, and all 3 of these movies flopped at the box office and got mixed to negative reviews, especially We're Back. So I guess it just didn't work well enough to sustain itself, and in 97, they pretty much got disbanded, and a lot of it went over to DreamWorks.
But we still got Balto Wolf Quest and Wings of Change.
Yay!
Yeah. No.
Those are also based on a true story, right?
Of course they are. It's all based off of a young wolf who's trying to find her way by traveling and finding out a whole bunch of weird things with an eagle. And the third one, which I don't even know what's about because I've never seen it.
I saw part of the third one on TV. If you want Boris to find true love, that's the one to watch.
Oh, no, they did that, didn't they? Oh, God, no.
Oh, thank God he did.
Oh, yeah, that was very important. Ugh. Okay, so that's pretty much it with the Amblimation trilogy. I mean, it was a really interesting time period of Steven Spielberg trying to, be like Don Bluth and create his own movies under the Amblimation name, but it was an interesting experiment, even though it didn't turn out very well for all three movies. But, I mean, I guess he eventually took what he learned and eventually started DreamWorks. And, a lot of the movies that came out of DreamWorks became successful in their own right. And, a prime example of, if something doesn't succeed, then you try again, and hopefully the second time it'll work out.
I guess maybe now that Amblimation is done, we got DreamWorks Animation. There's a possibility for the Cats musical.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
If they ever get their heads out of their asses and say, hey, you know what? Maybe musicals aren't such a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, musicals for a while started becoming, good. I mean, we had around the early 2000s, we had, a few musicals pop out here and there with Chicago and Hairspray. But then, stuff like Mamma Mia and 9 came along and pretty much ruined it. And then Disney...
Okay, you can have 9, but why does everyone hate Mamma Mia?
I guess because, well, I don't know. Maybe they don't like ABBA music.
Else, right?
I guess maybe they don't like ABBA. I don't know.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I mean, I don't mind ABBA's music whatsoever. It's fine. I guess maybe because... I don't know, maybe they just didn't like the performances, or maybe they thought the story was ridiculous and paper thin. I have no clue. I saw Mamma Mia in theaters, and I just wasn't invested into it compared to Chicago and Hairspray.
I saw it in theaters on my birthday. It felt like cheesecake to me, so...
I guess that's pretty cool then. All right, but yeah, I mean, I guess we can kind of see, DreamWorks trying to do something like that. I mean, Disney's doing it again with Frozen and with Tangled and I don't know. Moana, yes, that's right, Moana. Done by
that could be a musical.
Yeah, I mean,
it's musical.
It's done by Lin-Manuel Miranda, done the same guy who did Hamilton, aka the biggest Broadway musical ever right now.
You get to listen to Dwayne Johnson sing.
Oh,
you always wanted that?
No.
But,
not at all.
But seriously, Disney has gotten back to the point in which, hey, people love musicals, so DreamWorks, get on that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so yeah, I think that should be it for this podcast. So, guys, please promote your stuff.
Well, I mean, I got children and all that. Me and Neil have just been pulling videos each and every time. I'm going to try to upload 3 videos on this month. The first one's going to be on Scooby-Doo Monster of Mexico. Next one's going to be on Gladiformers. And the third one is going to be on Freebirds. So expect all those in the next coming weeks.
That should be a lot of fun. All right, what do you got, James?
Well, I got an advertisement coming out for the Christmas season for Bluey Pals, which I'm working on, which you can, which I'm going to hop on as soon as I'm done here. It should be done and up by the end of this week, so you guys can check that out. And as far as From Pages to Pictures is concerned, let's just say I have a little something planned out I like to call the Chris Van Allsburg trilogy.
Ooh, that should be really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and as for me, by the time this comes out, probably I would have posted my top 20 Hey Arnold episodes, or I would have posted my history of the Jungle Movie video. One of those would definitely have come out since then. So that's it. Hope you guys have yourselves a very happy Thanksgiving. Let us know in the comments below about which of the Amblimation trilogy movies are your favorite or least favorite, and let us know if you really wanted to see that Cats movie. All right, so that's it. Hope to see you guys around soon, and thanks for listening.
I could see Bernadette Peters being in that.
Yes, Bernadette Peters would be awesome.
Wouldn't it be great to see Rita as that one aging old cat? Just be like,
oh yes, if they can do that for like for Les Miserables, I would love to see a cat version. Oh, that would be so amazing. I mean, hey, it's perfect, Animaniacs.
memory, all alone in the moonlight.
Get on that, Spielberg. Okay. See you later.